Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Africa Football Showdown. My name is Daniel Dadzie. Welcoming my big man, my main man, my boss. In how we
As
call it, Bosuke now. Yes, Peter
Bosuke now.
Okwoche.
You have to tell me what that means. Peter Okwoche here, live from Abuja. You know you're in the right place when you're with us here on the Africa Football Showdown. We're the one-stop shop for everything to do with African football. And boy, do we have a program for you today.
I tell you, Peter, I must say I'm a bit disappointed. It's a bit of an underwhelming start to the quarterfinals of the CAF Champions League. That's where we'll begin. And then the pressure is getting worse, if I can use that expression. In the English Premier League, there's still all to play for. And we'll come to
Mm.
that a bit later in the program. Big question, really, Peter. What's wrong with African football? Because in the quarterfinals of the CAF Champions League, we were very excited to announce the matchups. We had some pretty exciting lineups. Esperance de Tunis, ASEC Mimosa, 0-0. Petro de Luanda of Angola made an appearance against TP Mazembe, which is like a well-known team as far as African football is concerned, 0-0. Young
Yep.
Africans,
Yep.
also another newcomer, Mamelodi Sundowns, who literally produced the South African national team for the AFCON 0-0. And then the only win in the quarterfinal is a slim 1-0 margin by Al Ahly against Simba. Peter,
I,
what's
I
wrong?
mean, I was shocked at those results, you know. I mean, four matches at the highest level of African club football and only one goal scored. And like you said, you know, if you look at Mamelodi Sundowns, who basically produced that Bafana team that went to the Africa Cup of Nations, being held. I know they were playing away, but being held by young Africans of Tanzania. Now, young Africans of Tanzania, definitely not a known name on the African continent. Their first time getting to this level of the CAF competition. So, you know, it's a bit of a disappointment on behalf of Mamelodi Sundowns. ES Tunis against ASEC Mimosa. I'm not sure who's going to be the happier of the two. Maybe ASEC Mimosa because they were playing away in Tunisia, and the next match is back home in Ivory Coast. They might, you know, relish their chances to take that one. But, you know, so many nil-nil draws in this stage of the competition. And like you said, even when we saw one goal, you know, Al Ali scoring away at Simba, and you know, Al Ali have won. They're the defending champions, and they've won this competition 11 times. Simba are getting to this stage for the first time, and I did say it last week that if you go into the Simba Stadium in Dar es Salaam, it is one of the most intimidating atmospheres I've ever seen. I mean, I've not been there personally, but I've watched them play on TV. It is absolutely deafening. So maybe that had an effect on Al Ali. Maybe they are hoping that come the return legs later this week, into the weekend, that they might be able to get something out of it. Yes, but you're right. Disappointing first leg matches.
Definitely, definitely. And I would say that Mamelodi Sundowns were my most disappointing team, purely based on the fact that you have that quality. And if you look at a team that produces a league, I mean, that produces quality for its national team day in, day out, it's the South African League.
Mm.
And, you know, the league in South Africa sort of has that infrastructure behind it, it has that funding behind it. It has full stadiums or stadia week in, week out. You want to ask yourself, whether should South African teams begin to take another look at bringing in players from elsewhere in the continent? Because
But they
look,
do that already. They do that already. Like, if you look at Wabali, for instance, who played for the Super Eagles in the Champions African Cup of Nations, rather. I mean, he plays his club football in South Africa. There are quite a few players who come from other parts. I mean, there are lots of Zimbabweans there. There are lots of Tanzanians there. There are a few Ethiopian players who play in South Africa. So They do play. They do allow a lot of players from outside their league or outside their country into their league.
But my challenge is you still have a domination of local talent in South Africa.
Mm.
If you look at the investments that the English Premiership made, for instance, to become the most watched league in the world. I mean, I know that there's a lot of, colonial and post-colonial complications that we need to add to that mix in order to make it the league with the most attention. But I believe that in Africa, the league with the most potential to be that league that, challenges for viewing rights across the world. It will be the league in South Africa. And the
I agree
challenge
with
for
you.
me is that you do not see it. It doesn't look for me like the best of the best in Africa when I'm watching the league. Like I know that they have international talents, but it's still very much a league that the big players are home based players. It just
And
it
I do see your point about that. I mean, because when you follow some of the club sides, so Mamelodi Sundowns, Kaiser Chiefs, the one in Orlando. I mean, these are
Orlando
massive clubs with
Pirates.
Orlando Pirates. You're right. These are massive clubs with massive followings. I mean, I've been to Kaiser Chiefs training ground before in South Africa, and I mean, it's the quality is the same as you would see in some countries in Europe. Great facilities, the players are very well treated. But then you wonder why it's only one South African team, if I'm not mistaken, and I might be mistaken, but only one South African team can I remember that have won this African Champions League, and that's Mamelodi Sundowns.
That's how the chips fell. So
Uh,
I know you started by looking at the second leg of games. I'm gonna quickly run through them once again. Sundowns play home to Young Africans. Petro de Luanda play home to TP Mazembe. ASEC Mimosa plays at home to ES Tunis, and Al Ahly now plays at home to Simba with a one-goal aggregate. It's very
mm.
easy to see Al Ahly going through to the semis, isn't it?
Yeah, see, I think for them it's a pretty done deal. But I mean, I'm just disappointed because it should have been a bit more emphatic than this. But I'd also still like to say a big congratulations to Simba getting to this stage, and like we mentioned in the last episode, two Tanzanian teams in this stage for the first time. There are no teams, club sides from Nigeria, no club sides from Ghana. Your traditionally big African footballing nation. So congratulations to Simba for getting this far. But I think Al Ali are going to make it through to the next round. Who are your choices for making it through to the next round?
I will put my money on Sundowns still, even
Mm-hmm.
though they only managed the nil-nil draw at home. I would say a low scoring draw away could take them through. I
Mm-hmm.
think that Petro de Luanda has done a good job against TP Mazembe. They could edge them out. ASEC Mimosa plays at home to Esperance de Tunis. It's a very tough one to call.
It is indeed.
However, because you can never count out a North African side, but ASEC has done the work by getting a nil-nil draw.
Did that remind you of any other game in the Premier League this season, perhaps?
That another side had a
Had a game plan.
had a game plan.
Yeah.
There are a lot of teams I watch, Peter
Mhm.
Okwoche. I watch a lot of teams, but look,
Yeah, but I
if you're
mean,
going,
one team went to another team this weekend with a game plan and completely saw out their game plan and earned a deserved nil-nil draw.
all I will say is that the person who sits on top of the table laughs hardest.
Well, I mean, and of course, our viewers and listeners know that we've now switched to the Premier League, and we're talking
Yeah.
about the weekend's matches and that match between Man City and Arsenal, where Arsenal just caged Man City and just completely, stuck to their game plan, and it seemed almost. I mean, you could almost say that they were playing for a draw, but they still had the best chances, and could have won the game, with a goal to nil. So kudos to them. But the real winners at the weekend, of course, Liverpool. That their victory, their victory earlier in the day, meant that they
against
climbed
Brighton.
against Brighton. Yes, they climbed to first place, and they're 2 points ahead of Arsenal now. And listen, like Pep Guardiola said, it's now in their hands to win or to lose. And who was their talisman again in that game? Who scored the winner? None other than Mo Salah.
It has to be. You see, remember, after that FA Cup loss, what I said was
Mm.
that we weren't utilizing Salah well because he was a bit tired in the Europa League fixture
Hmm.
and he couldn't play the full game in that FA Cup fixture. I think that is the solution. I'm hoping that his form is back. The thing for me though is that Liverpool now has a total of 7 wins from behind this season.
Hmm.
Last season it was 6. I mean, but I wish we were more confident in our winning ways. But
Mm.
that's Liverpool. I mean, it was against Brighton. It wasn't a game to watch. The big game really was that Arsenal game, and I
Mm.
think that we are beginning to see Man City top. Peter, like, it's like we are beginning to figure them out because yes, see, it was similar to that Liverpool game, wasn't it? Where Liverpool had a shaky start and should have won the game against City,
Mm.
but in the end eked out a draw. It really, really, really surprises me that the Pep magic was not working there. If I was an Arsenal fan, I would be disappointed. I would expect that they should have won that game because they
Mm.
definitely had the chances. Like you said, definitely had the game plan. I'm just relieved that in the end, that game comes out with both teams sharing the points.
Mm. I mean, listen, going back to Guardiola, I mean, is it a case of um, the team being found out, or is it, the sense that we've just done the treble, we've done it, we've been there, we've done that. So maybe they're not playing hard enough. In the first few minutes of that game, I mean, they were pressing Arsenal so hard. They had, in the first 30 minutes, I think they had about 75% possession in that match. And it was all being played in Arsenal's half. In fact, in Arsenal's last third. So it was disappointing. I mean, they only had one shot on target, and that was Nathan Ake's header around the 26-minute mark or something like that, before he was pulled out. So with injury, of course. Yeah, a disappointing performance from City, but I think that doesn't take away from the fact that Arsenal also had a game plan and they stuck to it. They just didn't want to get beaten. If you don't get beaten, you cannot lose. I think that was their memo that day, and I think they were the happier team for that.
Yeah, honestly, what I would say though, controversial comment, is that I don't expect City to be pulling these results when they have Erling Haaland. That's that's just my opinion. I think that in the games that I have seen City not perform well, it's been so obvious and it's been a bit easy to play him out of the game, and that's what it comes down to, really. Because I don't think that the kind of record that Sir Alex Ferguson left with Manchester United, it warrants any sort of resting on your oars after you win a treble, especially
Mm.
when you're a team in Manchester. You get me? Like, you still have the most decorated side in Premier League era, who is your neighbor. And yes, they're performing badly, but there's still a whole lot to play for. You get me? I just feel like every team that pulls results week in, week out against all odds relies on a certain magic in every era. They rely on a certain magic. Someone that can pull it out of the hat even when everyone is not playing well. Man United had Cristiano Ronaldo. At a point, Liverpool had Fernando Torres. Arsenal had Thierry Henry. Man United had David Beckham. Man United had Eric Cantona. Like, it is that thing. Barcelona had Lionel Messi. Real Madrid had the entire team. Remember? when it was Zidane, Figo, Roberto Carlos. It was almost like the entire team. When 5 out of the world 11 were playing for the Real Madrid first team. And I would expect that quality of Erling Haaland on that pitch should show.
But I mean, you know that Roy Keane, former captain of Manchester City, of Manchester United, I beg your pardon, who was a pundit on one of the TV shows in England or for that match, did come out and say that that Haaland was playing like a League Two player. So that's a third tier player in English football. I think that was a bit harsh, but I also don't want to blame him too much. He is still the highest goal scorer in the Premier League this season. He's not reached the heights that he reached last season, but he scored, I think, 29 goals in all competitions so far this season. That's not bad, and there's still a lot of football to be played. Plus, he was playing against one of the meanest defenses in the league in Arsenal, who have conceded the least amount of goals this season, and two of the best defenders in the league in Saliba and Gabriel. Don't forget, Saliba was named man of the match in that game, and they marshaled Haaland to a T. I mean, after the game, somebody said, and I found this very funny, that Gabriel was Haaland's personal security officer. Wouldn't let him go anywhere.
Good point. Good point. But I know it's a question a lot of people ask because it's like this guy comes with so much hype. He banks in the goals when the teams are soft.
Yeah.
But like as soon as you come up against any form and when it matters the most, you get me. When it matters the most, you expect that you have to show up. You see, the player has to show up. And it is because you have performed like this that today we can sit and have these conversations about you because those are the standards you've set for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You came 2-3 seasons in, you are already being compared to some of the greats that the Premiership has ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
That is the responsibility that it holds. You have to stick it in where it matters. And these players that I've named in the past, first of all, Haaland is getting as many goals as they were at this stage in the Premier League. But
true.
what they did that Haaland has been unable to do is carry a team to a trophy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And until he does that, I'm sorry. I don't agree with Roy Keane that he was playing like a Division 2 player. But there's a certain sense of leadership that must come from even if you're a young player playing against or playing with all of the greats that Man City has. Really, I know that the responsibility is on him. One thing I trust Joe is that I think that Pep Guardiola, he's a king of mind games when it comes to
he is. But I personally, I mean, well, it's a question I ask myself now. I mean, do you think that maybe Guardiola might regret having taken Arteta under his wing because Arteta learned very well from him and has taken 4 points from the master this season?
Well, I don't know what you want me to say. it's kudos. It's kudos to Pep, isn't it?
So yeah, my disappointment of the weekend, though, Chelsea drawing against Burnley after taking the lead twice. I think Chelsea, $1 billion team, have really underperformed in the last 2 seasons.
Honestly, I don't think Chelsea has come back since they were unable to buy players for that whole season. We knew that Lampard did his best, held the fort. He was out of his depth. He had to leave. Graham Potter was a huge mistake. But it's still not. This team is still not back yet. The team is still not back yet. It's a bit worrying to see. But then again, Chelsea has had a lot of backroom trouble with the exit of Abramovich and all of this controversy that the team has been mired in. So they get to be cut some slack in my books. They get to be cut some.
Okay, well, I'll cut them some slack. And Listen, man, Daniel, it's been another great session with you on the African Football Showdown for this week. Always great talking all things football with you. And to our viewers and our listeners, thanks a lot for joining us. And we'll be back with you next week.
Yes, indeedy. And look, let's just apologize, Peter. I mean, obviously, Peter had some lighting issues at his end. Really
Yes,
sorry.
thank you.
Wish we could have avoided it. It's the vagaries of running a podcast from two different countries across the ocean, and we have to balance getting a good internet connection against getting good lighting sometimes. Sorry
But
about
we'll
that.
sort it out next week. Yeah.
All right, all right. See you guys next week, Peter.
All right,
Peace.
man.
Thanks very much for watching this video. We hope you enjoyed watching it just as much as we enjoyed making it. Now, if you want to keep up with everything that the Africa Football Showdown will be bringing you, hit that subscribe button and keep up with us on all our social media channels. The link should be down there somewhere. Yeah, you got it.